Yo, everyone! As you can see, there is a war raging with the Northern Empire. And it's not the only war, because whilst there is indeed now a war against the Northern Empire, Revolt has risen in revolt again. And not only has Revolt risen in revolt, the Blackboar, Vladimir, has been humbled twice in tournaments now. Right at the finish line. Who by, might you ask? This lady, Sidra the Ill-Starred. She's not a young spryling, but look at those bloody stats. 343 one-handed, 399 athletics. Yes, it was impossible to get through her impenetrable and supersonic speed blocks. So something will have to be done about her at some point. See, look at this money. I really wanted to get some money between the episodes. Get some good money. Alas, despite recent failings, the Blackboar found a tournament where hopefully no supersonic speeded and abled woman is present, which means he might be able to win. He was confident as always, even if his faith had been shaken. Battanian tournaments were much preferable to the Vlandian and Imperial ones, after all. Having two-handed weapons and all that, that is exactly what Vladimir wanted. Even if his teammates worked against him to block his strikes, his power would crush through. The final battle. A Battanian Fian, a foe not even worthy of Vladimir's time. The Blackboar was finally victorious. Whilst his new pauldrons were pretty epic, they were not as epic as some pauldrons he had spotted earlier. And as soon as he had spotted them, that is when that dastardly wench had put a wrench into his plans and prevented him from earning the money needed to acquire them. He would need to avenge himself at a later date. For now, he needed to conquer a castle of rebels, but he could not do so alone. He called upon men to join him in his army, so that this castle's power, strength, and resources might yet again provide Battania. At least that is what the Blackboar would have done if going into revolt did not cause a significant and infinite and always crashes. Yeah. Instead of doing that, the Blackboar had decided to go on the offensive. Why gather an army to take back a stupid, revolt-loving town when instead you can extend that charity onto one that will accept you, embrace you, and love to be dominated? Euthylem Castle was calling to the Blackboar, and that was a call he was going to heed. And so, after attempting to besiege Euthylem Castle, an army of the Northern Empire appeared. He just managed to break camp and rally all his troops to see a massive army of well-equipped cavalry. The Blackboar was almost fearless, but he knew this was going to be a tough cookie to get to crumble. It was not the battlefield that Vladimir would have wanted. So close to each other. It was good and bad. The enemies started on quite the perch, but the enemy cavalry would have to get up hills to try and stop them, which would be good. Difficult for them to hit them, and perhaps chance the reprieve they needed. The good tactics. But the horsemen and the cavalry would meet up with the horse archers of the Empire, hopefully taking them all by storm. Or at the very least, some of them. Despite the clear mercenary scum in their ranks. Luckily for Vladimir, it seemed the main army of the Imperials was happy to just sit back, relax, and watch the show, whilst Vladimir the Blackboar took care of those horse archers. Vladimir was more than happy to disengage after they had decided to run away. The infantry was retreated as it seemed the enemy's archers were making good ground with them. Something that Vladimir could not accept. Whilst more of these dastardly horse archers decided to come closer, Vladimir had no intention of potentially risking his cavalry to stop. The enemy was coming in. It was time. Time to move in, and it was no dangerous task. Could Vladimir stop the onslaught? So many shields. So many men. Push forward! Do not let them through! So many men trying to get good ground, trying to get good purchase on the troops in the Blackboar's command. They would not reach the archers at the top of this hill. He would scream, "No! They shall not pass! Protect the archer line! At all costs! Where are the cavalry? Do not let them come! Stop them in their tracks!" Vladimir would not let his men fall without a fight. Oh no. It was not looking good for Vladimir's army. The Imperials had defeated their cavalry, and now there was too many. He was being knocked around like some sort of toy. As was everyone else. There was no archer line. It was more cavalry line than anything else. And it wasn't even his cavalry line. It was the Imperials. It seemed that only Vladimir was left. How many Northern Imperials could he take with him? Luckily for him, the cavalry made it extremely difficult for their men to even strike at Vladimir, because the cavalrymen had the most terrible aim you could ever dream of. They would not stop Vladimir! Not that easily. How long could he survive against these odds? Quite long indeed. But in the end, even the bloodthirsty, berserking Vladimir was taken out. And so it was. Vladimir's efforts had been thwarted, and apparently his reputation preceded him, as even though he was being escorted away by an army to a prison, a longer line of lords was trying to ensure that he would not escape. And indeed, even if he did, they would ensure that he was recaptured again. Vladimir had no intention of paying for ransom. He knew what they were doing. Such plans were not something he had intended to do anything about, and yeah, we'll see what happens after this. What the fuck is going on? He escaped! And somehow made it into Varchek. He had no intention of remotely trying to leave until those enemies were gone, and they did indeed disappear. Now he needed troops, because he needed speed. The Blackboar had been going around, and indeed, he had been going around to find Karine. And indeed, she remembered how they both failed at a tournament in Marineth. The failings were grating at the Blackboar, Vladimir, but it seemed Karine at least had the same experience. And then he decided to talk of the future, because romance needs no delay. He would say that everybody fears him. Everything, but also anything. I should try and win her family's approval, she said. With 71 relation. Does she even understand what that is all about? Apparently, she is a retard and fully understood that that was not even necessary. So she was honored to accept the proposal. Now, where was Caladog? He was at Marinath. And that is exactly where the Blackboar would go. And apparently, Corrine would nearly do as well. Not quite. And so, it was time to find the Lord of Battania in his own hall. Not the grandest of halls, mind you, but certainly not terrible. It had a certain dark charm to it. Looming, foreboding, dangerous. The Lord of the Battanians was a dangerous man. And asking him for the hand of his daughter, well, that was no small feat. The balls on this man! And he could not find him. It was merely Mengus and some mercenary scum in here. Where had Caladog gone? Upstairs? No. How bizarre. There was some magic involved in tracking down Caladog. Whenever the Blackboar had managed to come to the town that Caladog was at, he was mysteriously gone. Till he used the magic of message sending and was teleported to High King Caladog's position, he was impossible to find. Apparently, he was now in Sionen, and he was happy to see Vladimir for some reason. But he was also having no problems with offering his daughter. And so it was. Corrine and the Blackboar were married. Their matrimony was witnessed by all the influential lords and ladies of Battania. And their coupling was cheered on by all present. Truly, it was an event to behold. The once peasant farmer turned master soldier, and now he had wed the princess of Battania. Truly, a blessed day. As soon as she would become available, he would have her join him in battle. But it seemed there were others that needed to be fought. This man had good troops. He didn't, and Vladimir did not right now. He would join the army trying to besiege Remtoil. There his troops would gain the necessary experience to contest the darn northern lords' heavily armored horsemen. The Battanians knew they had the upper hand. They had the men, they had the soldiers, and they also knew that an unstoppable army was on its way. It was time to retake Remtoil, a formidable castle made by their own people many years ago, under enemy control. It saddened Vladimir to see it in this state, but it gladdened him to know that soon it would return home to where it deserved to be. Vladimir would do his best to attempt to stop these ballistae from inflicting grave pain on their troops. It was a tough task, but someone had to do it. Vladimir was all too happy to be the hero. The Blackboar, after all, was a mighty beast of destruction. Heroic destruction, but destruction nonetheless. His fighting prowess is what everybody wanted. That is why he was here. He would never have been allowed to marry Corrine had he not been a formidable fighter. Killer of many. Defeater of enemies. Savior of Battania. And he would save them again. The siege tower was not going fast enough. Vladimir knew this. Many men were getting lost, and they could not afford it with the encroaching Imperial army. They had to do some tactics. Move up the ladders! Distract the enemies! Allow the siege tower free reign. With the ladder placed up on this side, it would divert their attention, surely. Or not! They were still focused on the siege tower. This merely meant that going up the ladders was an even better idea, as it was uncontested. Vladimir had not expected such a poor tactical choice from the Imperials. Perhaps they merely relied on their ever-powerful cataphracts to win battles? Even so, there were men to defend. Barely. Nearly no men at all. One of those very cataphracts was here, and without his horse, he was nothing. They would have free reign to stop the catapults and everything else. And that is what they would do. Crush the enemies! They would not be allowed to kill any more Battanians. They had also come in the front door. Truly, they were coming from every side. The men did not know what was going on. Where did this random Blackboar come from? Your walls everywhere. Nowhere was now safe. The Blackboar had made sure that the enemies were routed. The castle was taken, and Vladimir would remain inside the settlement if the army did, and it did. They readied themselves to defend this siege. The army was being dispersed, but there was no escaping the attackers now. What on earth had they been thinking? It did not matter. There was no escape, and that was good. If the Imperials threw themselves against these walls without their horses, that is exactly what the Battanians would want. And indeed, they did decide to attack. But what Vladimir did not know is that all the lords inside the castle had sacrificed troops to escape. A certain victory turned into a certain defeat. The Blackboar was not only astonished at the cowardice, but utterly crushed as well. How could he have been betrayed? He knew that the enemies had no chances of success. Yet, his fellow men all ran like cowards. The enemies didn't even have siege weapons. They had nothing but stairs, ladders. Their chances of success were next to nothing. How could the Battanians have fled so? Were they not the brave warriors he had been led to believe? Grown up worshipping? Apparently not. Oh, but there was a siege engine. A battering ram. Hopefully the only one in their possession. Or they might be in trouble. Vladimir was not sure what was going on, but he did know that it wasn't involving the destruction of the siege equipment. And that is what they needed to destroy. Not the soldiers, the siege equipment. Why nobody was focusing on it was beyond him. At least in an attempt to destroy the men manning it. But it wasn't taking enough damage, it seemed. The ballistite bolts failing. And as such, Vladimir had to focus on the soldiers. It was just too late now. But Vladimir would not give up. They had men to defeat, and defeat men they would. There was soldiers everywhere, all over. How are they possibly going to defeat this many Imperials without all their allies? He would do his best. There was no way he was letting this town fall so easily. Men were lining up to be ballisted in the face, and he would let them. Except now, they had managed to break through. Where were the rocks? Did they have no rocks? There were rocks. And the man was bugged out there. They broke through in epic fashion. That was no good. And the men weren't even dying of the rocks. What was this? Oh dear. What was this siege? How could they have been abandoned so? It would have been so easy. Look how many men they destroyed. If they had equal amount of troops, it would have been easy peasy. The fact that they abandoned... Oh no. The fact that they abandoned the army and then fled one by one. That is what made this go to shit. Vladimir needed to play this smart. Could he defeat everyone one by one here? No, they forced themselves forward. There was no way. He was in the corner now. He was in a corner. There was no way he could get out of this one. He could hardly hit. Apparently the enemy's good. Until he went down. To the last man, of course. As always. The castle only lost due to the immeasurable cowardice of all the Battanians in front of him. A disgusting display. Something that the Blackboar could not even remotely fathom. Pure disgust all over in his system. The anger, the burning hatred. It was growing and growing. Feeding a darkness deep inside. He was still captured, but something was going on. Many lords with no troops at all were around, just dilly-dallying. And an army as well! And the Battanians decided it was time to do something about it. And Vladimir could do nothing, whilst he just sat imprisoned in Remtoil Castle. What were the lords doing? Who knew? But they were not doing anything smart. Would they perhaps decide to siege down Remtoil Castle with 64 defenders and save Vladimir? It did not look like it. Until that is exactly what happened. They finally began a siege. The siege had raged on, and then it seemed that he was free. He managed to escape in the turmoil and then decided, well, best hop right in where it's safest. Even if all the men were cowardly bastards. A victory. Magnificent. Finally, they had taken it back. Hopefully this time, they would keep it. Vladimir would return to Mariner. Weak, sad, defeated, disillusioned. He had so many defeats. And even if he had managed to marry Corinne, it was grating on him. And so he would engage in some tournament fighting. He needed a win. He needed a big win. And money. Big win and money. That piece of equipment would be his. And he succeeded. He won! It was quite something to witness the battles that went on down in the arena. The fighting that men would engage in, pummeling each other. But Vladimir was truly becoming the Blackboar, staying in the darkness, wondering what was he doing wrong? What had happened now that he was no longer a soldier? Right. He needed to choose to fight now that he was on the same level as the other lords. He could see their true nature. They were not good enough. Vladimir needed to do more than fight by their side. He needed to be better. He needed to be the best. And be the best he would! Thanks for watching, guys! And I'll see you next time!